All righty, welcome back to another episode of 2 Point Sports. Today is Friday, February 24th, and today we're back. We took Wednesday off, but today we're going to be talking about a little Michael Hawkins, Devon Mitchell. TCU also lost a quarterback commit in the 24 class. OU made a top 12 for Zion Ragins, and then Williams Nwaneri is making a trip out to Norman come early March, and so that's going to be the first player we're going to be talking about as far as who's going to be visiting for Junior Day, which will be a huge day. So this upcoming week, we will be talking about more and more people that will be there, and we'll try to put together a list and really dive in and discuss nearly every player. We're not going to be able to discuss everyone, but we'll try our best between 2 to 3 videos, go in depth and talk about who's visiting and who you should know and go through that. So without further ado, let's get into it. So Michael Hawkins, and this can be talking about the upcoming visit on March 4th or 5th or whatever that weekend. I assume Mike Hawkins is visiting that weekend, and it would make a lot of sense why he would. From my understanding, he will either visit sometime in March. So Mike Hawkins, 6'3", 200-pound quarterback out of McKinney, Texas, once at Allen, Texas, 2024 four-star QB, number 200 overall player, and the number 14 quarterback in the class. It's OU TCU battle. We've talked about him at length. Obviously, an OU legacy, someone that OU is pushing for, and it looked like OU was going to lock it down last month and at the end of January until the Jeff Lebby to Alabama rumor started. He probably got a little cold feet or started thinking twice. Maybe he will leave. And then TCU hired Kendall Briles, who Briles had the great relationship at Arkansas with Hawkins, and is now recruiting him at TCU, which is really unfortunate if you're an OU fan or Oklahoma. And now we're hoping that Mike Hawkins makes a decision in March, and hopefully it's for Oklahoma. And but talking about TCU's quarterback situation, they did lose a quarterback commit in the 24 class as Marcos Davila, 2024 quarterback out of Midland, Texas. He's a four-star QB. He's a little bit lower ranked, like the number 20 quarterback in the class. So a little bit lower, but he ended up opening his recruitment, and he just picked up an offer from Miami and Purdue somewhat recently, in Texas A&M. So obviously with Garrett Riley being gone, do you think Davila's decommitment will play any factor in Michael Hawkins' decision? Me personally, I don't feel like it would, but what do you think?
I do think it's going to play a factor. And the reason I think that is because of how long it took him to decommit and move off of that TCU offer. I'm not sure if Sonny Dykes was trying to convince Kendall Briles about that being their quarterback for the 24 class. I'm not sure if it was they wanted to evaluate and see which one was better for TCU and their offense. Obviously, Kendall Briles already had that existing relationship with Hawkins, and they've been recruiting him since he's gotten on campus. I think this decommitment makes it a little bit more of an even matchup between Oklahoma and TCU because of Kendall Briles and the existing relationship. Now, for the guy that did decommit, Davila, it seems like it'd be pretty clear cut that he's going to be Clemson's quarterback, given that Garrett Riley is the one that recruited him to TCU. Who knows? It just seems like kind of, they'd be the new leader in the clubhouse for him. We'll see for that. I just wouldn't feel too confident right now with Mike Hawkins. Now, I said it last time we talked about him, and I said it when he took his visit back at the end of January. If he goes to Oklahoma, if he goes to one school over another for a visit, they happen to be on the same weekend, that's where I would see him leaning towards. I think he's already seen enough of Oklahoma. He's kind of like Derek LeBlanc of last year, and Peyton Bowen. You've seen they've been to campus so many times. You've probably seen what you need to see out of the campus, out of the facilities. You already have probably a really good relationship with the coaches, specifically your coach, that you're going to hang out with every day and who's going to be there to mentor you both on and off the field. So if you were to go to Oklahoma, then you have to feel comfortable there. If he kind of snubs Oklahoma and goes to TCU, I think that maybe Oklahoma's in a little bit of trouble there, because then he is interested in learning more about TCU and figuring out if that's going to be his fit. Could it still work in OU's favor? Sure. It would be a wrench there for Oklahoma and a roadblock for OU to get past. Another thing to look for is if Oklahoma is going to start recruiting another quarterback, who's it going to be? Van Buren, I would assume, is the next option there for OU, given that DJ Lagway is committed to Florida, at least for now. Maybe they try to get back into that recruitment, but you've got a lot of guys that a lot of quarterbacks are actually still on the board, which is surprising. But those recruitments are starting to close quickly as the summer gets closer. So OU needs to get an idea of where they are with Hawkins, if he hasn't already silently committed, or start recruiting others to try to have a backup plan if Hawkins doesn't go the way they want it to.
They definitely need to have a backup plan. I would hope that they're actively recruiting, whether they've offered that player or not. That's, to be seen, but I certainly hope that they're touching base with other players, because we've seen this go south before. I mean, whether it's quarterback or not, in different positions where we feel like he's Oklahoma's guy, and then when it comes time to make a decision, it's like at the week leading up, we're like, wait a minute, this is going south quickly. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I feel like it's going to be really hard for any other school, whether it's TCU or anyone else, to beat out Oklahoma, just because, he's a legacy. Jeff Levy's there. But he's also got to think that if you're worried about Jeff Levy leaving, and that's fair. If Jeff Levy has a great year or two, he's probably going to get a great head coaching job at a Power 5 school. But I could argue the same thing with Kendall Briles. If Kendall Briles puts together 2 great years as their offensive coordinator at TCU, other Power 5 jobs are going to come calling. I think he left Arkansas just because Arkansas, Sam Pittman has been under a little fire. I feel like his seat's getting a little warm. There's a little dysfunction in that program right now, obviously getting rid of their defensive coordinator and whatnot. But it feels like you can't compare. I'm worried about losing one of the my coordinator, because odds are, if they both perform, they're both going elsewhere at this point. So when you look at that, you can throw that right out. And where did your dad play, and where can you go win a national championship? And I think Oklahoma's the spot. Not saying TCU can't, because obviously they made the national championship more recently than Oklahoma. So I can't sit here and act like it's absolutely impossible that you can go win a national championship. But the thing is, when you go to a 12-team playoff and you're going to have to play 12 regular season games, conference championship game, and then potentially 2 or 3 or however many games it is into the playoffs, you're playing 16, 17 games, whatever it ends up being. You have to have so much depth and so much talent at every single position. A school like TCU is going to struggle to fill out and play their best in 16 straight games. It's going to be tough. And Oklahoma offers the ability to make a national championship team.
And regardless of how many teams are in the playoffs, going to a bigger brand is always going to help get to the ultimate goal of a national championships, or even just a playoff berth. Like we saw it this year, TCU was undefeated up until the Big 12 championship. They lost that, but it was a close game. And there were questions about if they should even be the number 4 team. Some people didn't think they belonged, let alone be the number 3 team. Some thought they were going to be in number 4 in the playoffs. But they went in because of their accomplishment. And I think that's probably the first time that the committee's ever done something based on accomplishment over brand. It wouldn't have been surprising to a lot of people if they would have put Alabama over TCU when it was done through the regular season last year. And who knows, maybe it would have been a better playoff championship game, but at the end of the day, TCU got in because they deserved. And that's probably one of the few times the committee's done something like that. You can't bank on that happening every year. So going to a brand might be a benefit. The other their thing for him to think about is playing time. And Jackson Arnold, I think we all agree, special guy, going to be really good at quarterback, or at least that's the expectations. He would probably have to sit 2 years, right? He'd sit next year, and then assuming Jackson leaves in his third year, he's still sitting another year there. Does he have the patience to do that? I think at TCU, there's probably an easier route to being on the field, given that their depth. He'd probably go in as the backup right now, behind Chandler Morris, and it would take them recruiting someone like a top 2-3 quarterback in the 25 class for him to feel like he's getting snubbed. This really, to me, for the Oklahoma standpoint, kind of looks like a Nick Evers situation. Like, kind of seems like this is why Nick Evers left. He saw Dylan probably assumed Dylan wasn't leaving. Dylan have the greatest year at Oklahoma, and you see Jackson Arnold coming in, and that's kind of the guy that everyone expects to take Dylan's spot once Dylan moves on to the NFL or whatever it is he does next. Like, where's the playing time coming when you go to Oklahoma? That's one thing to think about. I think if he has the patience, then Oklahoma's probably going to be the better spot for longevity. Going to be in the SEC. Your draft stock is going to improve just because of that fact. Like, you going from, like, if he was an average Big 12 quarterback, you go from being a 6th round, 7th round pick, 5th round pick to maybe being more of a confident 4th round pick. I mean, Kellen Mond was average as fuck, and he was a 3rd round pick for the Vikings. Like, and it's just because he played in the SEC.
No, that's very true. I mean, Kellen Mond was not great, and somehow the Vikings thought, oh, he's pretty good. Let's 3rd round pick. I mean,
Played against
that's a solid
SEC
pick.
defenses. Yeah, I mean, dumb, stupid.
Yeah,
but it gets your draft stock up.
yeah, and that is fair. It is tough to sell someone to come in behind a 5-star quarterback. I mean, it's a tough thing to do, and it takes a lot of humility to be able to accept and assume. I mean, you can come in and compete, but the odds are stacked against you to beat out a 5-star quarterback. But we've seen it before. I mean, Caleb Williams came in and beat out Spencer Rattler. Now, I don't expect as a true freshman Hawkins would do that, but I mean, there is a world where it does happen. When you had Kelly Bryant and Trevor Lawrence, things do happen, but it's like one out of every 100 times. And maybe even one every 500 times. But anyway, that is a good point. I mean, TCU does offer quicker playing time, but do you take quantity over quality? I'm not 100% sure. And I feel like he's got a good head on his shoulders where he's looking at the big picture and the overall package that OU can offer in the platform. The thing where I'll be concerned about is if he goes to OU, say this upcoming weekend in March 4th, and he goes, and then it's crickets and nothing comes of it. If you don't see a commitment go public within a couple weeks, I would be a little concerned, because if you're going to be a leader in a class and start the class, because OU still doesn't have a commitment in their class, you need to get on board as the leader of the class and as a quarterback and make a decision now to recruit your peers. If you don't hop on board, whether it's, if it's Oklahoma, if it's not Oklahoma, Oklahoma's going to have to move him immediately, and then he'll go to TCU and probably start recruiting. But if he doesn't pull the trigger and go public with it sometime in March, that's when I'll really start to become like, this is going to go south quick. And I don't think it will. I still think Hawkins will be OU's guy. It's just, I will become more and more concerned every day that it goes by that, after his visit to OU, you have to go public to recruit.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I feel like it's going to be like that until Oklahoma gets their first recruit, regardless of it being Hawkins or not. It's the fact that they're still sitting at 0 when you just came off of being a top 5 class and before that a top 10 class. I mean, I know the product on the field wasn't amazing, but recruiting hasn't seemed to be an issue in the cycle and a half that this staff has been in place.
Mm-hmm. And talking about recruiting, one of Hawkins' good friends or best friends is Devon Mitchell, who played at Allen with him and has since relocated to Los Alamitos, California, to play out there in 2025 for the time being. 5-star tight end right now, 6'4", 245 pounds. Seems like he's in the process of reclassifying into the 24 class, at least starting the paperwork, and we'll see if it gets approved or not. But immediately, I mean, he's OU's number one target, whether he's in the 24 or 25 class, because he's that talented. And we've talked about him quite a bit on here. I think he caught a little over 700 yards and like 9 touchdowns, I just remember off the top of my head, last year as a sophomore at Allen, which is really impressive. But the thing is, if OU can lock down Hawkins, Mitchell, reclassifies. I wouldn't say that Oklahoma, I'm not going to say it's 100% lock, but I would really like Oklahoma's chances. I mean, now it sucks that he's at Los Alamitos now. I mean, I'd rather have him be in Allen, but I don't think because he spends 1 year in California, it automatically is USC. I don't get that vibe. And if his best friend is going to go be the quarterback in his 2024 class, why not go to Oklahoma? And there has to be a reason why he's reclassifying. I don't know why, but maybe it is to go play with Hawkins. I don't know.
No, you're spot on with that. Him being in California doesn't really change Oklahoma's chances at this point, given that it's still the spring of his junior year, right? So still plenty of time for him to be recruited. And I think some people give USC a little bit too much respect in the recruiting trail. Riley didn't do anything amazing last year in his first year as a Trojans head coach. Maybe be more intimidated by Oregon. Dan Lanning is proven to be a fearsome foe when it comes to the recruiting trail. Almost got Peyton Bowen from us. But Devon Mitchell, that situation to be interesting. It would, if Hawkins does commit to Oklahoma and your feelings come to fruition, then I could see Devon Mitchell following along and being the weapon that Mike Hawkins hyper focuses to get to Oklahoma. And I would be interested to see how that would affect Oklahoma's chances for T.A. Cunningham, because now then you would have a sooner commit if Devon Mitchell were to commit with Mike Hawkins on the team, with a defensive lineman that Oklahoma has been in communication with since last spring when they did their sophomore event, and about this time last year. It seemed to be going well for OU, and then he moved to Los Alamitos. He had the situation where he wasn't able to play. Things kind of tapered off there in recruiting for a little bit for him just overall, and people kind of just assumed USC was going to be the favorite because of being in their backyard. But you still have schools like Georgia going after him. Oklahoma still recruiting him. Like, there's still other programs going after TA, so maybe having a teammate, Devon Mitchell, there repping Crimson and Cream would help. Getting T.A. Cunningham to try to visit again. I know he posted something on Twitter. It was either earlier this week or late last week, with him wearing the Sooner uniform. So he still at least has some interest. If he's using it for clout or has genuine interest, that's the only he knows, but he's at least still on the outside showing that he at least likes the program enough to represent the colors on his social media. So we'll see. I just think it makes it a little bit more interesting there. Now, if Devon Mitchell does commit, I think that would be a nasty duo. It would kind of look like Dart and Trigg when they left through the portal to Ole Miss. We'll see how that goes to fruition for them. But Hawkins and Mitchell would be a similar duo in my eyes going to OU or wherever they would go if they went together.
That's a good comparison, and I certainly hope it's Oklahoma. And naturally, you would think that TCU would become, be a player in his recruitment if Hawkins went there. But I also get the feeling that I feel like Mitchell wants to go play at a big program. I don't know what his reasoning was. I don't know if it ever came out why he's going to Los Alamitos, but I feel like if you're going to Los Alamitos, it's mainly for football. And I think it's to be picked up by one of the biggest schools, or more of a platform out in California. Not that Allen isn't a great platform, because Allen's one of the better programs in the state of Texas, but California football is really good as well. So, and he's not a Californian kid. So, I mean, it's just like By Job. By Job wasn't an Oklahoma kid, and so he's not tied to the state. So moving on to the next kid, and we haven't talked about him before, 2024 four-star running back Zion Ragins. He's a top 70 player in the class, top 10 receiver in the class. He put out a top 12, and he had Oklahoma included on it. He had a pretty great sophomore year. 63 catches for 1,062 yards and 9 touchdowns. He took a little bit of a step back this year. 46 catches, 557 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Still overall, I mean, he played as a true freshman, or not a true freshman in high school. In total, his career, he's got 2,200 yards and 16 touchdowns. So a kid that can play, obviously, at the high school level as a freshman, that's impressive. He's a little bit smaller. He's more of a speedster, at 5'9". But he put Oklahoma in his top 12. He's out of Georgia, the state of Georgia. What do you think about Ragins? I'm not really sure the feeling I get, just because of where OU might stand with like Zion Kearney and a few other receivers in this area.
Yes, to that second part, I think that's spot on. What pops out to me is, one, it's only a top 12. So we could be number 12 out of all of them. And it's a matter of, these are the ones he wants to focus on over the next, 6 to 9 months. Because they still have till December to sign that early letter of intent. And for some kids, they decide to ask for a release afterwards. But outside of that situation, he's 5'9". And that is a huge difference between what Oklahoma's looking to target from what we've seen over the last year and a half. Even for wide receivers mainly, and even for DBs, they're usually going after 6 foot plus long dudes, play multiple sports. He runs track, and Zion runs track as well. He's really fast, like you said. He seems to mainly be a speedster. We haven't seen that role in Oklahoma's offense quite yet. With shorter guys, maybe if you see a Gavin Freeman really get more touches this year and have that kind of have more plays drawn up for him, because he only had a few touches last year. Maybe he would take like a Drake Stoops spot, but it's not like Drake was a burner. I mean, he's a really good athlete, but I don't think you would look at Drake's game and say, man, that guy's going to absolutely toast everyone and take the top off the defense whenever he's on the field. It's not that kind of situation. So he would essentially be creating a very new role and new play style at the wide receiver position because of his size and speed and how those combine. At this point with Zion Ragins, if we're saying that right, it's a wait and see situation. It's tough to say, again, because of it being 12. Like you want to see it maybe dwindle down to 7 before you really start speculating. Maybe Oklahoma does have a good shot with him, and vice versa. Maybe he really is interested. I don't think he's not interested in OU, but maybe you only get 5 official visits, and you got to utilize those. And there's 7 of them that won't get an official visit, maybe even a visit at all. So we'll see. The 5'9" thing is what's really throwing me off. I don't think that Oklahoma will go in that direction, given that that's 3-inch difference, and that's quite a big difference when you're looking at a wide receiver.
No, I would agree. I mean, top 12s, sometimes some of the edits that come out are top 15s, top 20s. It's like, I mean, you can't seriously be considering top 20, 20 schools or something. I mean, you're doing it to keep the school logo in there to get followers and clout. I mean, I'm not saying that you can't maybe some people do consider 20 schools, but I mean, that's just crazy. You know where you want to go generally. You have an idea.
For those guys that do release top like 15 and 20, it's more like because most kids only have between like 25 and 30 offers, and these are like the highly recruited kids. You're really just saying those 10 schools that offered me, I'm not really interested. I don't know why you even reached out. I'm only going to stick to these 20.
Yeah,
Like I get it once
exactly.
it goes to a smaller number because you're gonna limit down to the 5 schools you're gonna take official visits to. I think maybe we should just start Hayes and all those other guys that do edits. Maybe just say, let me know when you have a top 5, and I'll gladly start spending a couple hours on your edits, because making a top 20 and top 15 and top 12, top 9, whatever these guys are doing, their increments. It's like they're negotiating to figure out which ones are going to be their 5 official visits.
Yeah, true. So I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, whether he's truly interested or not, I guess we'll find out, but it's always good to be included. I mean, it's better to be included than excluded. So, but we'll move on. So obviously we were talking about the upcoming March visit for the junior day, and we're going to be talking about Williams Nwaneri. I mean, there's really not a whole lot for us to say other than he's a 2024 5-star defensive lineman, the number 1 defensive lineman in the entire country. He is slated to visit Oklahoma that weekend of March 4th and 5th. Posted on his Twitter. He's obviously extremely talented, former teammates of Caden Green. I feel like Oklahoma's in a great spot. It's just a matter of, this is where Todd Bates has to close this out. This is where, the David Hicks deal, I get, whatever, you came in late. Williams Nwaneri, like, you have to go get him. I think you have the connection to the high school. You've had this relationship. You've been at Oklahoma now for a while. If you can't show improvement on the field and you can't lock down Williams Nwaneri, we got problems.
And teammate with Caden Green, like you mentioned. I think him picking to go to Oklahoma during that weekend is good for OU. It should be a good sign. He's been on campus a few other times before this. Like, he's clearly still interested in building that relationship and looking at how Oklahoma's going to put him in a position to be successful. I know that he's, Missouri's still going after him, and I think that they're probably going to be the biggest competition down the stretch here. If he decides to commit sometime in the summer, they're not going to make it easy for him. They're going to try to keep him at home. But Caden Green is going to be the guy to ultimately help him make that decision. If it really is a close, am I going to stay home or am I going to go to Oklahoma or really anywhere else? If it's between someone in Oklahoma, I think the relationship with Caden could pay huge benefit for Oklahoma. And I know they didn't play on the same side of the ball, so probably didn't spend a ton of time together, but it is high school. These guys do a lot of things together off the field. Clearly they go to class, but it's not like they're as separated as when they're going to be in college or, even in the NFL level. They're around each other all the time. So I'm sure they at least are pretty decent friends. I would like to think Oklahoma is at least number 2 on his list. I'm not going to go as far as saying that Oklahoma should be the favorite right now because, again, his recruitment's pretty quiet overall. But you mentioned that the connections, a lot of things connect him to Oklahoma. Now, Todd Bates just has to close it out. And with the defensive line, it seems like it's always a team effort with him and Chavis. But if it's both of them, if it's one of them, whoever it is that's making that is going to finalize something with an interior defensive lineman, they gotta do it. This is the year to prove it. Nut up or shut up. Because last year, I know we got Derek LeBlanc and we were on the edge for a couple of guys, but landing number 2 was better than it was before, but it's not where we need to be to build up the trenches, especially on the defensive side of the ball.
True. And, I'd imagine Nwaneri probably won't decide till the summer. That's just my guess. I mean, I would imagine the spring he's going to take a few visits, whether, obviously going to Oklahoma, maybe he goes to Missouri. And then he evaluates after that where he's going to take his officials. But I think he has a general idea of like Oregon, Tennessee, Missouri, Oklahoma, and I don't know, maybe somewhere else. and take those official visits this summer, and then probably make a decision before the start of his senior year. That's what my guess is. I feel like you said that it's quiet, his recruitment. I feel like he's a no nonsense kind of guy, and like a PJ Adebore, like when I make up my mind, that's it. I'm done. No more. And Caden Green was the same way as well. I mean, same mindset. So we got a couple connections to that Kansas City area. You land Williams Nwaneri, you got to feel pretty good if Oklahoma can. And I would obviously think if you can only land 2 of the defensive linemen, I want Nwaneri and Nigel Smith. I mean, those 2 are extremely talented. I would love Xavier Sims as well. I mean, I love them all. It's just Nwaneri is extremely talented. So
Can't forget about our friend David Stone.
Well,
that's got to
true.
be a.
That's
if
true.
anyone is a must get, and you can't lose him, it's David Stone because of the guy being from Oklahoma. But yes, if you're going to pick anyone outside of David Stone, I think that I agree with you.
You're 100% right. I totally blanked on David Stone. You're right. Could you imagine Nwaneri and David Stone together? That
It's a
would
mean
cause
duo.
problems. And I think all the defensive line recruiting complaints would be erased. And
You'd
no
hope
one
so.
would question. Yeah.
But I mean, I guess we're still questioning it this year, and this last year was an improvement from years past. I mean, we got a 5-star in PJ, a top 200 player in Derek, and at one point he was a top 100 player when he committed. Like, we didn't get bad players, and we got decent players, but just not. I think we were in so many races to the very, very end, and a couple of them ended in bitter endings for Oklahoma that people just want to see those. They want to see the top defensive lineman or top 2 defensive linemen commit to Oklahoma.
It's always that, whether it's recruiting or life in general, it's always like what I could have had or almost had, rather than looking what be grateful for what you have in front of you. And I'll say that as well. It did burn a little bit and suck last year, but still overall it was good. So, made this far, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. We're growing, and also we can't forget the Kyler Murray statue will be revealed on the spring game. I think it was April 22nd. And I saw Venables put out that video. OU football put out a video where he was joking about 11 a.m. kickoffs about the spring game. It'll actually be at 2:30, which is nice, so that people can actually tailgate. And I at first, when the video started, I was like, no way, it's really at 11 a.m. That's ridiculous. But anyway, so do you have any final thoughts or anything like that?
In the video challenge this time, since spring game is about a month and a half away, roughly 2 months, I guess, we're going to give tickets away again this year. We don't know how many, at least as many as we did last year, and we gave away 4 pairs last year. So we're going to do at least that many this year. We were talking about it, maybe a few more. So help us out. Just make sure you hit subscribe, share the video. Biggest thing, share the video. Let's try to grow this community so we can try to give up as many tickets away as possible, and you guys can go enjoy the spring game, pack the palace, and hopefully get to peep the new statue of Kyler Murray's. It's back-to-back years. Pretty fun.
That is pretty fun. Be sure to share it in like Facebook groups. Those typically do pretty well. OU Facebook groups. But anyway, made this far. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, follow us on our social medias, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Apple, Spotify, and TikTok. Everything's linked in the description below. And we'll catch you guys next week.